very good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first start by paying my respects to the memory of Thiru Mahavir Munot CA. It is very fitting, I think, that we're having this lecture in his memory, though I did not know him in his lifetime. I have learned through the course of my life that, especially for those of us in positions of power, in positions of high office or great economic circumstances, the value of a life is usually only fully understood after the person is gone. And so I think it is a testament to the impact he must have had in his life that we are here 10 years later having this fifth memorial service. And I am happy that we are joined by so many of his relatives, including his brothers. And I start again by paying my respects to his memory and the many great things he must have done in his life to enable so many other people's careers and progression. I thank the Association of Chartered Accountants Chennai for organizing this event and continuing to run an endowment in his memory and provide scholarships every 2 years. It is a noble endeavor, and I congratulate all those who have played a role in it over the last 10 years and more broadly in the 20-odd years of the life of this association. I have a very interesting topic today, the prospects for the IT sector in Tamil Nadu. I have to be somewhere else, so I'm going to try and leave at 7, so I'll try and speak for about 20 minutes. Let me start by saying that though IT means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, in my adult lifetime, I have had the luxury of seeing about 4 or 5 major transformations or inflection points in the nature of the IT sector. And if I was to start, I would say the notion of a personal computer, that is a computer not intended for an enterprise, not intended to be run only by people who could afford large amounts of investment and separate cooling systems and data machines, data entry machines. For those of you who are old enough, you may remember that in the era of the mainframe, you had to have a separate machine to turn your code into punch cards and then actually feed the punch cards into the mainframes. But the big revolution in my mind was the advent of the personal computer, which happened around 1980. By good fortune, I had the luxury of getting one of those from the US. And for those who are very young, I just want to show the stark scale of advancement in the 44 years or so since. In 1980, the first personal computer had a random access memory of 64 KB and a hard drive of 20 megabytes. That was the scale of computing systems. Now, a good phone or a good camera will take one picture. That's more than 20 megabytes of storage. So that revolution happened first. I would say the next major revolution was the relative democratization of computing through the notion of graphical user interfaces, where you didn't need to learn a programming language before you could interact with the computer. And that happened around 1990, partly with the Apple Mac, partly with the Microsoft Windows. And then we had a silent revolution which fueled the ERP boom, which is to have what they used to call thin clients and a lot of analog to digital conversion devices, so you could actually run enterprises like factories with continuous data input coming through. Then what were local networks became the internet around the late 90s and the big boom in the NASDAQ, which was the first internet wave. And then we have seen the evolution after that crash into broader social media, the metaverse, Internet of Things, now AI, or this coming of AI. So the industry has gone through a lot of changes. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, we were relatively early in recognizing the potential of this sector, and we did a couple of things very well, or very intelligently, or very prospectively value adding. One was that we started expanding the scope of engineering education and computer science and STEM education broadly very rapidly. And if I put that in context, when I graduated from what was then REC Trichy, now NIT Trichy, in 1987, the state of Tamil Nadu had probably 7 or 8 engineering colleges and produced about 3,500 engineers. Today, the state of Tamil Nadu has probably 550 engineering colleges producing about 180,000 engineers a year, graduates a year, out of a national total of about 1 million engineers in India. So that was one thing we got right. We got a lot of people who could actually adapt into this field. The second thing we got relatively fast was in the late 90s, then DMK government, 96 to 2001, Kalaignar saw the impact this sector was going to have, and we were the first state to have first an IT promotion policy, then an IT department and a separate minister for IT, and the creation of large office parks like the Tidal Park to enable a lot of investment into the sector from overseas. We rode the boom, I would say, for a few years. But the reality is that between the early 2000s and today, we must admit that Chennai has fallen far behind the leadership in this sector in this country. If you look today in terms of innovation, if you look in terms of broad employment, probably Bangalore is still the number one. If you look at the most recent kind of accelerant in this space, it's probably Hyderabad. And to some extent, places like the greater capital region in around Delhi, Pune, these have all done relatively well. In fact, we have not done so badly, but it has been relatively through benign neglect. That's the right word I can say. Because fortunately or unfortunately, the state of Tamil Nadu, the city of Chennai, had many variables that drove growth. We had the manufacturing sector, we were big in auto industries, we had a lot of export-oriented work. And so we didn't really promote the IT sector or focus on it very heavily. Whereas places like Bangalore, that was their one key to success. And in fact, Tamil Nadu as a whole is actually much more than Chennai alone. If you look, unlike any other state, maybe in Maharashtra there's some in Pune and some in Bombay. But if you take Karnataka, outside Bangalore, there's very little IT. If you take Telangana, outside Hyderabad, there's very little IT. But if you take Tamil Nadu, there's huge amounts of IT employment in Coimbatore, large amounts in Madurai, in Salem, in Tirunelveli, in Tirupur, in Erode, so many cities. So we are much stronger than we appear to be, but we're actually still not nearly where we should be, and there's many reasons for it. But I would say where we are today is very interesting. We have a situation where Tamil Nadu has such a unique ecosystem in the IT sector. Probably the most evocative way to mark that difference is to compare, of the major cities in the IT space, what percentage of the workforce is actually local talent. So were you to go and look at Bangalore, for example, something like 20-25% of the workforce is originally from Karnataka. The rest is from all over the place, and in particular, about 20% is actually from Tamil Nadu. If you look at Hyderabad, the ratio is probably slightly higher, 30-35% local, the rest from other places, and so on and so forth. But if you look at Chennai, the ratio is probably 80% that is local workforce and less than 20% that is from outside Tamil Nadu. I went to one of the large US global capability centers in the media space, about 5,000 people, and I said, what percentage of your workforce is local? They said, if you include within like 50 kilometers of the border into Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala, then the answer is 98%. Right? That's a very unique statistic. That has some pluses and it has some minuses. One of the great pluses, let me just take a segue and say, if you think that is Chennai, imagine what it's like in Madurai. In Madurai, it's like 95% local and only 5% from outside. This is a great strength in one way. It means that we have much more stable workforces, we have much less attrition, much less cost escalation in labor cost, let alone that we get cheaper land and buildings and energy than in most other places. But what it also means is that we are not seen as a center for a cosmopolitan and diverse workforce that is the basis for true innovation, for startups, for the kind of breakthrough products and technologies that Bangalore, for example, is known for and has a lot of the unicorns and a lot of the startups based there. So once I came to this portfolio about 8 or 9 months ago, maybe almost 10 months ago now, I started first trying to get a feel for where are we today as a state. And what's interesting is that we are actually much, much, much bigger than we think we are. Even just today I met a relative of the person whose memory we're here for, who's running one of the verticals of a big US logistics and services company and has thousands of employees here. This media company I went to, I didn't even know they were in India. There are 5,000 people in Chennai. My friends in the banking sector, personal friends who are at places like Citibank, at Standard Chartered, at Bank of New York, thousands and thousands of employees in Chennai alone, and some of them are in other places now, in places like Coimbatore as well. So first of all, we don't even have the data to know really what our strength in this sector is because we have not created it. Most other states have actually given incentives, have drawn people, have set it up, and so they have a database. Here it has happened because the talent pool is here, because the infrastructure is here, and because the conducive environment is here. So in fact, the first thing I've been working on, and it's still a work in progress, is just to get a handle on where are we and what is the scale of operations, not just in Chennai, but across Tamil Nadu. It's actually quite huge. We're not that far behind anybody, actually. But there's a second variable that's very interesting. Because we have been producing such a large percentage of the talent pool for so many decades, what has happened is that there is a massive Tamil diaspora in the tech sector around the world. Of course, we all know famous people like Sundar Pichai. But if you take in every industry, somebody just gave me a book when I came, the MMA gave me a book that had been released here recently by a very senior person in Google. And he was my senior at NIT by 2 or 3 years. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these examples. So we actually have this massive network of Tamil diaspora or Tamil Nadu origin diaspora that is all over the world in very senior positions, in large companies, in startups, in innovation. My personal friends from where I went to business school, many of them were of Tamil origin, who are doing extremely well in the Valley, in the Bay Area. Again, I see that as a plus and a minus, right? The real minus is that, in fact, in Tamil Nadu, we have not been able to create jobs, create enterprises, and provide the kind of business facilitation that would have led to greater acceleration of employment, that would have led to greater expansion of opportunities, that would have kept some of these people at least still here. And they've been forced to go elsewhere. And as with everything else, there's always kind of adverse selection, right? The people who are the best of the best will go to the biggest markets in the US, in New York, in the Bay Area. And the next level will go to the Singapores, the Australias, the Europes, so forth. But what's amazing is how many people of Tamil origin actually are manning and driving these industries in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Pune, in Delhi, and so forth. So the second thing that I've been now trying to do, and we will accelerate in the next couple of months, is to build this affinity network. First, where are all our diaspora? What positions are they in? What are they really, how many of them are decision makers? How many of them are influencers? How many of them can open doors? How many of them can make calls? And really see, how we can leverage that. So I would say these two externally are our greatest strengths. We are actually much bigger than we think, and that will give its own momentum and scale. And we have this massive network of goodwill if we can just bring it all together and do that. And of course, we have natural advantages, right? We continue to be the greatest source of talent. We continue to be the most urbanized state in the country and have probably 10 cities of more than 1 million people each. And that's important because A, it's easier to provide good services and connectivity and bandwidth and all that. But B, it turns out that after COVID, there's actually a clear value for people to work close to home, even if they can't work from home permanently. The ability to be a few hours away from your family, your elders, your farm, your business, your relatives seems to have a premium now that didn't exist pre-COVID. So, those advantages we have relatively good road network, we have relatively good power situation, we have relatively good air connectivity. So in every way, we have some natural advantages. And I would say, last but not least, the two main landing points for the internet cables that come from over other countries under the sea, one is Mumbai and the other is Chennai. So, we have the likelihood of less disruption and certainly the advantage of less latency for you to be connecting globally with those. But we are in an inflection point in the industry. I think we all know that the tech sector is going to be changed pretty dramatically. I think this provides a unique opportunity for us to leapfrog and overcome some of these limitations of having been relatively asleep at the wheel for about 20 years. And I think the greatest luxury is that we are now moving towards language-based models for data and processing in the world of artificial intelligence. Now we have, again, the great luxury of critical mass of about 75 million people who speak a language, and therefore the likelihood that we can create our own data ecosystem and voice ecosystem and knowledge ecosystem around this language. We also have relatively high penetrations of English, so even in the global market, we have a workforce that can adapt relatively easily, relatively quickly. And as a government, we have decided to focus on 3 or 4 things to try and accelerate this. The first is the Chief Minister's PET program, which has been the skilling, career guidance, kind of better fitting of academic output to the needs of the economy and industry, which he calls Nan Mudalvan, which is a program to improve work ethic, perseverance, excellence, and fit. And that starts with teacher training, it starts with career counseling for students and their parents in government schools. It has so many aspects of it, and then including entities like the ICT Academy of Tamil Nadu, which is incidentally the biggest government-owned training institute in the country because we have offices in 10 states, though we're only the state of Tamil Nadu's training academy. We will use all these resources to triangulate and find a way to better finish those people who are already at finishing stage, better guide people who are at the middle stages, and better initiate people who are at the lower stages with technology, with the notion of AI into the curriculum at a very young age, and therefore get the workforce ready for this new era. The second is that our TANFINET project, which is part of the BharatNet model, we hope to have that done by this year. We started late because of some legal issues with our predecessor government, but we hope that by the third quarter of this year, we will have broadband connectivity by fiber to about 12,650 panchayats or so. So basically, we can offer about 100 Mbps internet around the state and meet our value, our goal of social equity and inclusion, that nobody should be left behind. The third, I think, is that we need to greatly improve the environment for attracting investors and attracting companies, because there's a huge need for more and more tech and tech-related services. And I would say there's 2 or 3 nuances to that if I finish on this note. The first is the government itself is by far the biggest source of data, though it's not digitized yet, and is also the most archaic institution that requires significant improvement in its functioning. So we can kill two birds with one stone. Were we to improve the way government functions internally and interacts with citizens, and in the process were we to digitize all the information we have and make it possible by a machine, by a learning model, then I think we have something really interesting and unique to give us an edge going into this era. The second is that we need to better improve the alignment of all our promotional efforts. We have too many people engaged in the notion of promotion and the notion of innovation. We need to streamline and get all of these lined up. And we need to have the government both fund as well as promote new technologies by being a good partner. So back when I was finance minister, we started a program which has fallen a bit behind. We need to re-accelerate. But it was a program that said if we find interesting startups that have technologies that the government can benefit from, some drone technologies in both local administration, like municipal administration as well as agriculture, some robot technologies in sanitation, in other kinds of applications, some IoT kitchen technology that we can use for our free breakfast program. Said when we find these startups that are Tamil Nadu based, the government of Tamil Nadu should waive its tender rules, its transparency rules, and up to 50 lakhs, and we changed the law to allow this. Up to 50 lakhs, the government can directly sign with these startups if they're new companies and new technologies, and then make it a win-win, that we validate the technology for them. They benefit from having us as a client and increase their credibility when they go to market. And if they're really that good, we actually fund them and invest in them and take equity and find a way that we can benefit from their rise and give them the liquidity and the capital to expand their activities. So I think if we put all of these pieces of the puzzle together, better infrastructure, better connectivity, better training, digitize the data, improve the government services, and make the government itself a financier and promoter of innovation and development, and we leverage our network, which is the diaspora as well as the strong base we have here, to improve the marketing and to draw more investment here, then I believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, we can actually see what happened last year scale up quite a bit. And by last year, I mean that though Chennai generally sees about 4 to 5 million square feet of Class A office space being leased a year, last year it was a record 11 million square feet, almost as much as Bangalore, which is a first for us. And it's not coincidental. I think it's the way the world is changing around a lot of these variables. Also, the GCCs in Chennai have seen somewhere around a 40% increase in headcount. I don't know if that's true of your company, but broadly, I personally have gone and opened many expansions of company offices in the hundreds or thousands of people. And in fact, I've made the statement in the floor of the House that by my estimation, we're creating at least 10,000 jobs a month in the IT space in Tamil Nadu already. And that's without much government support, without too many people coming and asking us for incentives. So it's my view that were we to actually bring all these efforts to bear and take conscious steps and do focused marketing, we can actually double or triple that, and we can actually accelerate at a level where across Tamil Nadu we can hope to reclaim our position as one of the leading states which we held 2 decades ago and which we have let slip in the time since. So on that positive note, let me conclude my comments. Let me thank you again for inviting me. We're at a very interesting time for the industry. We're at a very interesting time for the state. I hope that we will be able to deliver on the potential and the promise that we see ahead. Thank you very much.